Okay, Mr. Phobes here. So I'm going to talk about developing the shapes for this project and then editing the colors. On the previous video, I showed you how to set up your color swatches so they're all ready to go. Um, now, uh, I've got 8 different layers, and I've got this one layer. First layer, I placed the color wheel in just as reference, so I've got that turned off. And then you're going to do a different color and different shape in each layer. All right, so just to kind of mimic what I did on my second layer here, I'm going to draw the ground. So there's a couple little tools I'm going to show you how to use. So there's this basic shape tool. You can do rounded rectangles, ellipses, polygons, stars, those kinds of things. So I'm going to go to the rectangle tool, and I'm going to draw my background. Okay, so that's that. Um, I'm going to go up to my next layer, which is my green layer. I'm going to lock the layer below just so I don't interfere with it. And I'm going to draw a shape, and I'm going to use the curvature pen tool. So if you just click on it, it takes a little bit of work, you know, so you can do, make all kinds of crazy things. Okay, now what's nice about this, whoops, I forgot to change the color. So I need to go to my palette. There it is. It was blue on blue. That's why we didn't see it. The other thing is make sure that when you're drawing, have the stroke clicked off. So that's the default is like this, and then if you selected your color, you still have this black stroke. So to get rid of it is just go none and then bring this forward. Okay, now what's nice about this is if I wanted to change these, I could go to the little anchor points and I can move this around, right? So I can, yeah, really play around with this. If I wanted to add an anchor point, I just come up to the line and I click, and it adds another anchor point. So you can play around with this all you want. All right, so that's how I would get you know uh, that shape. All right, let me lock this and let's go to the layer. So let's say I just want to draw some really simple straight line shapes. Go to the pen tool, and you can do that. Should have been again, I'm not paying attention. I think I wanted that to be my orange. Okay, um, I'm going to delete this. So you can also draw curves with the straight line tool. It's just a little bit harder. That's so why when they came up with the curve tool, it really made it a lot better. Okay, I'm going to just go and draw like a simple rectangle or triangle. Okay, so there's 3 tools there that you can use. Um, and then the way I came up with the bird, that was just a shape that I brought in. So I just brought the bird in, and I image trace it. So I just went File, Place. I bring the bird in, Place. He's really huge, so I'm going to reduce him. And I wasn't paying attention, to have done it on a different layer. Now, so I'm going to go Image Trace, Silhouette, and then make sure that Ignore White is set, which it was set on mine, and that's why we can see it without any background. And then the other thing is you have to hit Expand, and that's what's going to let you color it, right? So now I can go and select one of my swatches and go there it is. Okay, so that's how you can make the basic design. So I'm going to get rid of all of this, and I'm going to show you how I need to unlock these 2 guys. Um, and I'm going to show you how we're going to edit the colors on this. So I've created my design. Again, you want to have a full range of value. You want one shape that's going to create emphasis, so that's really obvious because the bird is unlike any other shape. So with I'm going to go ahead and lock this bottom layer because I don't want to copy this, but all the other layers are unlocked, and so I'm going to select all the layers, and then I'm going to push down the option key and the selection tool, and that's going to copy it. And I'm going to copy this 3 times. Okay, now what's super sweet about having, I didn't get this thing just right. What's really nice about having these swatches set up is I don't really have to do any thinking. I've already done it. So I go to the bird here and I want it to be my desat, my muted yellow, which is this one right here. Boom, right? Take my green, I want it to be the desaturated, right? Take my blue, I want it to be the desaturated. I want this red, there it is. I want the orange to be this, and this to be that. Look at that. So now I've got the muted one. If I look at it and I go, it's still like this guy looks like it's still a little bit too saturated, I can go ahead and adjust it. So maybe I want to bring this down to let's bring it down to like about 85. And we could do the math, but I'm just going to eyeball this and bring it down a little bit. Maybe bring this up a little bit more. Okay. And it changed it. So it's a little bit more desaturated. Okay. All right. So now let's do this guy. All right. So these are my chromatic gray. So here's my chromatic gray of yellow. Now I want to make sure I have a full range of values. So the problem with this is it went really dark. So what I can do, it's still going to be a chromatic gray, but I can add some white to it. So it's a chromatic gray that's just a little bit lighter. All right. So let me do the chromatic gray of blue, which is this one right here. All right. And that's pretty gray. If I want to, I can add some. Let me just continue to do this. So it's this one. And this one. You can see why it's nice to have them ordered, because then you don't really have to think about it. Okay, now again, I'm tasked to have a full range of value, and if I look at these, they're all too much mid-key. So let's say I want to get this one darker. What I can do is I can do a couple of things. I could go back and go to the HSB sliders, and then I can just take the value down that way. All right, and let's say I do this one. I could make it a little bit lighter. I don't know if that's maybe I want it to be a little bit darker, so let me go to the HSB sliders and let's make this one a little bit darker. Okay. I could make this one just a little bit lighter too, something like that. Maybe make this a little darker. Now look at these, these look kind of similar, right? So what I might want to do is go back in and I can go to the HSB slider, and why don't I just bump the saturation up a little bit? I can do that as long as it looks very different than this. All right, so that's not bad. Maybe I want to desaturate this one even a little bit more. So I go to the HSB slider and I can desaturate it. It's getting pretty gray. All right, but that looks pretty good. All right. Now let's go to this one and let's change them all to tints. Okay, so if I go to the cyan blue, there's that. That's pretty light. And then I go to this guy, go to the light yellow, go to the orange tint, go to the red tint, go to the violet tint. Okay, so oh, and then I need to do this one. All right, so that certainly, you know, follows the rule. Now the other thing is that they only have to be high key colors. So what might add a little bit more interest is, rather than doing from the prismatics, what if I went back into the chromatic grays? So let's look at the chromatic gray of violet, which is right here. All right, and then it's already set at a pretty, there we go. There we go. Now I bring it up in value a little bit. So this one, the rule is there has to be a narrow value range, but you could have so for example, the bird here, you know, it could be a saturated yellow. So I could go back up here and pick this yellow and then maybe make it lighter. All right, so it doesn't have to be super desaturated, right? So maybe I want to make this guy, maybe I want to saturate him just a little bit more, or take a little bit of the white out of it. All right, and then the blue, let me just make it, there we go. I think the yellow could still be brighter because it's blending in too much. So let me go back to that yellow and just add. It's still a very high key color, right? So that still works. So I could play around with it, but that's basically it. And you know, I could go and, you know, I'm looking at this and I'm going, it looks a little bit saturated. So, you know, I could come in, go to the HSB and just bring the saturation down a little bit like that, right? It still looks like a muted color, but it was a little bit too close to this, right? So that's all there is to it. There's one thing that's kind of nice in the 2019, if you have the subscription, you've updated it, they now have this thing called View, and it's called Trim View. And what that does is it allows you to see what it looks like without, so it really shows you the composition is the way you're going to see it. So that's kind of a nice thing. That's only in CC 2019. It was just released, but that's something I just found out about. So kind of gets rid of that. Okay, so this is just for you to study. If you felt like you wanted to, you know, put these in your journal to show, you know, the work that you did in the studies, you could certainly, you know, save them. Go to the Artboard tool, go File, Export, and you can just go Export for Screens, and it shows them right there, right? And there's 4. Keep them at JPEG 100, and then go Export Artboard. So if you export those, so I already had one down, you know, so go just replace. Okay, and they actually go into this little thing called TX, and they're right there. So this is where I would then load them into Blackboard. So that's all there is to it. All right, I'll see you in class.